What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today it's gonna be a fun one. I mentioned in the last couple of videos that we finally got the rest of the wiring we need to wire up Blueberry for its first startup. I'm gonna dive right into it because I want to get some work done and I want to hear this thing turn on before the night falls. You guys already know my go-to wire guy is CJSWIRING. He is a local and he is a good friend of mine. I've been supporting him since the good old Honda Tech days, and each and every one of my car is running his harness and a lot of his like other miscellaneous plug and play harness as well too. But mainly for the engine harness, I run CJSWIRING, whether it's a full tuck or just a conversion harness. A couple of days ago, we received this package from him and we are ready to unbox it with you guys and show you what we have inside. I'm not gonna cut this box. I'm just gonna go ahead and tear it up because there are wiring inside that I don't want to cut into. At the very beginning of this build, I mentioned that we're going to try to keep it as budgeted as possible. I'm currently using the 0204 RSX Type S harness in Project Blueberry, and the reason why I'm using it is because I got it from the junkyard, and because I bought it with the engine, it wasn't really much. Like, I bought the whole entire engine for $230 with the harness attached to it. So buying a harness from the junkyard, say like an EP3 or an RSX base model, it's probably about 35 to 60 bucks depending on what they want to charge you, whether it's a medium or a large harness. Now, if you don't find a harness in the junkyard like I did and you turn to the marketplace to find one from somebody else, you're probably gonna look at like $200 to $500. And if it came down to that case, you're better off just buying a whole brand new tuck harness. CJSWIRING has a budget tucked harness for a very affordable price. So if you guys are looking for any wiring or harnesses for your vehicle, link to CJSWIRING is always in the description below. CJSWIRING does have the K20 conversion harness on his website. Literally, this thing is 100% plug and play. You got the third plug for the ECU, you got the C101 plug, you got the fan and the coolant temp. This harness has the third ECU plug here, the C101 plug that connects to the OEM engine harness. We have the fan plug here and the coolant temp plug there. These two plugs right here goes to the factory ECU plug, and then we have the O2 sensor plug right here. There is a DLC plug down here below if you want to use like an OBD2 scanner. So this right here is the factory chassis ECU plugs. It normally sits over here on the passenger kick panel, but it is kind of pulled out right now. This thing is kind of sort of hacked up, but I'm hoping that whatever is hacked up on here is not a wire we need. So this right here is from the factory chassis. This three here is the engine harness. These two goes to the ECU plug. This is the C101 that connects to the conversion harness. CJSWIRING harness here, there are no loose plugs at all. Again, 100% plug and play. So I'm gonna start on one side of the harness here, which is this. This is the C101, plugs to the engine harness side, like that. And then this right here is the third ECU plug. So that stays with these other two here, right? So this is where the ECU is gonna be plugging into. On the opposite end of the harness here, we have some long wires, which is O2 sensor, this one here. This roll of white wire are for the fan and the coolant temp. So these are actually gonna head back into the engine bay. I'll go ahead and put this to the side real quick. These two right here plug into the factory ECU wiring. There's only going to be two plugs being used and not the third. I don't remember which one is A, B, C, or A, B, D, but it looks like the two bigger plugs are what's going to be used. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in, and the other one over here. This third one just kind of hangs out. It looks like this one right here is supposed to go over to the driver's side to the fuse box. So let me locate the plug for this guy real quick. Okay, so according to the instructions here, number 5, you will notice a long lead with a gray 20-pin connector. This connector will plug into the gray plug next to the C302 brown connector. So if you look at the diagram, there's a C302 brown plug and then there's a C301 gray plug. So you disconnect the gray plug and then you plug in the gray pin from the conversion harness into that. So if you look, that plug is undone here and we have the open slot right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this plugged up. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this through, route it a little bit, and then we're gonna plug it into that location and we'll show you guys that. But this plug here, pretty much like power supply, reverse light, all of the signals for the gauge cluster. Make sure you plug this in. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that just now. Everything is plugged in underneath the dashboard, and over here through the firewall where the AC would be coming through, we have the white wire which goes to the fan switch and the coolant temp which sits over here. It's going to be in this general area, so I don't know where I'm going to have the switches set up to yet, but I do have it routed all the way over here, and I'm just going to tuck it away for right now. Also coming out through the firewall is the O2 sensor. I don't have the O2 sensor. I had one, but I installed it into the KRX before I went to retune the car, and I'm gonna have to grab another one for this car. So O2 sensor is just gonna sit right there for right now. Right now we're going to step into the ground straps. So the ground cables provided by CJS Wiring. This is a 20-inch for the ground to the battery to the chassis, and then we also have two 12s for chassis to engine. So I should have had the ground for the battery to the shock tower, the stock length, but I requested a 20-inch to tuck it away, not realizing that there's really not that many bolts down here to secure the ground strap too. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna loop it down and then come back up to this 10 mil right here. This little 10 mil, I'm gonna scratch it up a little bit, and then we're gonna secure the ground strap to that. I am gonna grab the Resto Tuner hardware, just so we have some nice fresh zinc coated hardware in the engine bay. Look at this beautiful thing. The entire engine bay is going to be rocking the Resto Tuner hardware, and we're going to be changing that when the car is almost ready for its voyage, because I really don't need to change them out right now. I'm going to run the hardware a couple of times in and out of the hole just to get all the paint out of it. For the transmission ground, I am going to mount it on the rear bracket right here, which you can see is threaded for a 10 mil. And I'm going to go to the frame rail over here to the other 10 mil hole. The reason why I'm putting it in the back is because this car is going to be turboed, and I want to clear the front section of the transmission for all the charge piping. The last ground strap, I normally put it on the valve cover on the back side just so you don't see it up in the front. And I normally mount this where I just mounted the battery ground, so I don't know if I want to relocate it or even move it down lower somewhere, not on the valve cover. The last ground strap, we have it under the engine to the chassis here, and I think it's a nice solid connection, and it makes it easier for like removing valve covers without having to forget putting the ground back on. I do need to plug up the O2 sensor hole since I don't have an O2 sensor right now. I should have a plug in here somewhere. I do have a dead plug, bad O2 sensor. Here we go. So guys, this thing is almost ready to fire over. Now the only thing left is the engine fluid and trans fluid. I'm not sure if I want to put trans fluid in it just yet. The car's not going to drive anywhere, obviously no radiator, and on top of that, no shifter box or cables. I'm not sure if I want to put trans fluid in it just yet, because if anything happens, I don't want to have to put it in and then re-drain it out if I got to drop the engine for whatever reason. I've turned on engines before on jack stands without trans fluid. It doesn't hurt anything. Put it in neutral and shouldn't have any problems. But other than the engine fluid, it's just the ECU. I just want to quickly say, man, how fast Project Blueberry has been coming along. And I've been waiting for this moment, because once the car turns on, man, we step into the next phase of the build, which is all the turbo stuff, which to me, it's all the fun stuff. So let's go ahead and get some fluids in this engine. So I have the K Pro out of my wagon. I have the cable right here. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the laptop inside the car before we power it up and figure out a base map for this. I took the ignition switch off just so I can power the car from the switch here with the key. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my laptop. I do need to grab a new battery to have the terminals on the correct side, but for right now, this should still work. So we have the ground on there, positive for the power. I'm going to turn the ignition to see if I have any type of power, and we have nothing. So we have power on the battery, power in the fuse box on both terminals, and then over in the battery on both ends of the battery. And all of this right here reads the same as well too. So we're gonna move inside the car. I just checked everything underneath here. Nothing seems out of place. A couple of splice wires, probably from alarm system. And yeah, I noticed that this thing is pretty beat up on the inside, right? And I was just kind of tinkering with it, and the car powered up. So let me show you guys really quickly. You see, it comes on. Okay, well, now it comes on. I just heard the fuel pump, so that means I'm gonna go check some leaks if we have any. We are leaking right there in the center. We are looking good there. Can't tell what the return line, feed line is looking good. No leaks, no leaks, no leaks. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that up right there. Right now it's just on the K Pro, just to fire this bitch over so I can move on to the next thing. So that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna turn the car off because I did put the IAT sensor on. And see, the car doesn't turn on. I gotta jiggle the ignition switch so I can power up. There it goes. I check fuel, we're good. Check engine light's gone. The injectors are off so I can prime the oil through the system, because obviously this thing was bare when we took it apart, right? So here we go, crank. Oh, doesn't even crank, bro. Should I go crank it over at the starter? The ignition switch literally feels like it's about to fall apart, bro. All right, let me go test it at the starter, just to crank it. It's just shorting the starter. Like it's not turning the starter over.
That means
that starter.
Yeah, it might be stuck. Sorry, hit it with a hammer or something like that.
Oh, the good old hit the hammer.
Yeah, come on, man. The hum trick, bro. Starter.
Okay, yeah, it's just sitting there sparking. Okay, take 2. Fuel's priming. I guess I forgot to turn the car off. Shut off. Here it goes. Okay, so we are priming the oil through the system. It sounds good. I'm gonna go ahead and set you guys up in the front here, connect the injectors back in, and I am also gonna record on my Instagram story as well. Project Blueberry is alive, and it sounds awesome when it's holding idle, but it is choking down because we have a couple of check engine lights. But man, I am stoked. So we have a CRK sensor, no signal. I don't know what that is. We have IAT sensor. I'm not sure why that's still there because I did plug one up. Secondary O2 circuit heater. We don't have a primary or a secondary, but I could have sworn that I had disabled secondary. So I'm gonna go ahead and just upload that. But yeah, you guys heard it. Car turned on, and wow, this is a huge step for me for sure. I know a lot of you guys are probably like, oh, why am I so stoked that these cars turn over? They always do with my projects and stuff, but like, it's very, very nerve-wracking because the engine came from the junkyard. It was super slugged up. We cleaned as much as we could, and obviously it's very nerve-wracking because of that. I'm gonna go ahead and figure out what all these codes are and see if I can try to fix it and get this car to hold its own idle, and then we'll probably show you guys another like startup and idlings. Okay, so that check engine light was for the crank sensor. This is a 24 engine with a K20 harness. This is the 24 crank sensor. This is the 20 from my spare engine. Apparently the wiring is different and I didn't know it, so what I did was I ended up just shaving the tabs off the 24 to fit the 20 plug onto it, not realizing that the wiring is different. So Nomis was like, change the sensor, check engine light should be gone. We already have the battery disconnected so I can reset, and we're just gonna go ahead and toss this back on and try again. Around 1000. No idle air control valve, but it is firing over every time now. And I can actually rev it through. Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Woo! Well, I still got that check engine light though, I don't know why. And I did disable the 2 check box for the O2 sensor. So I don't know why that's still there. It was trying to hold up on its own, but this car is cold and it doesn't have an idle air control valve. But guys, Project Blueberry is alive regardless of the fact. And From here forward, it's just really buttoning it up and making sure the engine holds its own idle. It warms up, it sounds good. I want to drive it and probably do an alignment before I tear this car back down for the turbo kit install. Guys, I am so pumped. This car is freaking alive, and I think we're on schedule. I think we're on schedule with the road trip. I'm sorry to say it, but I think I'm gonna wrap up the video right here, guys. We made a ton of progress today. Project Blueberry is awakened and we are ready for the next phase. Obviously, there's still a lot to do with like the radiator, the shifter box, shifter cables, and all that good jazz before I even decide to take it on this first drive. And a lot of that is gonna be coming hopefully this upcoming week. All the CJS wiring stuff I've shown you guys 100% plug and play. If you guys are interested in any of the CJS wiring products, link is always in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed the progress update in today's video with Project Blueberry. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up. And if you guys want to stick around for the wagon content, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.